Well, good afternoon, everyone. It's a pleasure to welcome you to today's session. My name's Mike Barber. I'm a partner in Deloitte's ESG practice. And I'm really pleased that we have this opportunity with so many of you to talk about the Circularity for Social Good report. This was a report that was led by the Good Foundation and the Circular Electronics Partnership. We supported some of the research, and the aim of that was to look at the barriers and solutions to the donation of IT equipment, with a view that addressing those barriers would help both tackle the digital divide and reduce e-waste. The report highlights the benefits of implementing circular principles that focus on environmental impact and on social value. And we'll hear more about how this model benefits organisations in their approach to achieving their ESG and social goals. Rally, over to you.
Thank you, Mike, and hello, everyone. It is a pleasure to be with you today as the communications lead for the Circular Electronics Partnership. And before we dive into the collaboration on this work, I would just like to briefly introduce the partnership for those who are not familiar with it, perhaps. So CEP, or the Circular Electronics Partnership, is really a collaboration between 6 global organizations. You can see them in the corner, the bottom corner. This is the Global Electronics Council, the Global Enabling Sustainability Initiative, the International Telecommunications Union, Responsible Business Alliance, the World Business Council for Sustainable Development, and the World Economic Forum. And over the course of 2019, all of these organizations realized that they all work on an overlapping pool of projects with overlapping pool of private sector companies. And this really entailed the risk of not only duplicating efforts, but potentially even running projects which have contradicting outcomes. And this is why these organizations came together in a partnership in 2021, hosted by the World Business Council for Sustainable Development. And as a platform for its partners, industry members, and the wider stakeholder network, CEP aims to drive a coordinated transition towards a sustainable and economically viable circular electronics industry. It offers a holistic value chain approach for the industry-wide transformation towards such circular electronics. And our goal is to address the 40 systemic barriers to the circular transition of electronic companies by 2030, through collective and converging action, which is based on the CEP roadmap, which I can talk to briefly to in a second in the next slide. So the Circular Electronics Roadmap, which you can also access by scanning the QR code or going to the CEP website, is at the heart of what we do. And it was developed over the course of 2020 through a combined working group of over 30 companies in the industry. This roadmap, as I mentioned, outlines 40 actions across 6 pathways spread over the product lifecycle. And it is a call to action for stakeholders to, first of all, design for circularity, drive demand for circular products and services, to scale responsible business models for circular electronics, to increase official collection rates, to aggregate for reuse and recycling, and to scale secondary material markets. And if we go to the next slide, you'll be able to see a spread out of all these actions. It is not meant for reading all the small text, but really to illustrate the activities and the real-time progress on advancing on this roadmap, and as well to highlight the action which this project that we're here about today addresses. You might wonder why this roadmap, I'm talking about the roadmap in this context. Well, the CEP partners and members are very much committed to leading the way in addressing these 40 actions. But of course, there are many others, like the Good Things Foundation, who work towards the same goals. And we want to ensure that there's real convergence of efforts in this space. So the roadmap is not only our North Star, but also an invitation for others to join forces and accelerate impact by 2030. And when we connected with Good Things Foundation, they wanted to understand the barriers and opportunities for companies to donate their old IT equipment for digital inclusion purposes. And we recognize that this knowledge has real potential to unlock investment in circular business models with both social and environmental impact, which is what this action 3.4 in the roadmap suggests. While circular business models are essential for the transformation of the industry, the social impact these could also generate is often a missed opportunity. And this is why we think this project is an important step towards creating more awareness and enabling action to scale such business models. So we're really happy to have this as our very first CEP affiliated project, which is led by a non-profit organization with great expertise in the topic and supported by the knowledge of Deloitte's experts. And we also were delighted to have CEP members have the opportunity to get involved in the project. And the findings of this research, which we'll be discussing today, and the circular electronics for social good model, which the report showcases, provides a really clear compass for companies and other organizations who wish to have both positive environmental and social impact. We wish to see this research and its tangible recommendations support and inspire the CEP community and others to reuse business IT equipment for social good. And this can not only help tackle the ever-rising amount of e-waste globally, but also close the digital divides. And on that note, I would like to thank the Good Things Foundation and Deloitte for this incredibly valuable work. And I look forward to the discussion on the topic today. Over to you, Mike.
Thank you, Raleigh. Thank you for that introduction. I love a plan on a page, and I love the roadmap because it really helps zoom in and zoom out on the key things, and 40 of them that really help us advance on this topic. So I've downloaded that, and I encourage others to do so too. But we're zooming in now, and we're zooming into today's report. And Emma, Gabby, I think you're going to lead us through the next slides, please.
Absolutely, that's brilliant. Thank you, Mike. So I'm Emma Stone. I'm Director of Evidence and Engagement at Good Things Foundation, and together with Gabby, we're doing a bit of a double act today, talking through the research findings. And I really do encourage you, as we're sharing things, if there are questions that it triggers, if there are things that you want to ask our panel later, if you've got reflections, please do put them in the chat, and we'll be scanning through them later and bringing those back into the Q&A at the end of the towards the end of the hour. So Raleigh's done a brilliant job, as has Mike, of lining up about why we wanted to do this research together across Good Things Foundation, Circular Electronics Partnership, and with Deloitte. And so a quick recap of the methodology behind this. So we started off with some desk-based research to scope the current e-waste and digital divide landscape. But the real core of this has been the interviews, over 20 interviews held with leaders across sustainability roles, IT, procurement, corporate responsibility, and really importantly, we were delighted to be able to interview people from across a range of different sectors and a mix of global and UK businesses as well. And in terms of then analysing what was coming out both from the desk-based research and the interviews, we also had the benefit of validation and discussion, both with Deloitte subject matter experts, but also at a workshop that CEP hosted back in March. And so stepping back a little bit in terms of a reminder of the UK context, two key things here. So one, currently the UK is the second largest emitter per capita of electronic waste in the world. And there's an estimated 1.5 million tonnes of electrical and electronic equipment discarded each year in the UK. And at the same time, whilst being absolutely a well-developed, there's a well-developed digital infrastructure in the UK, but still the digital divide remains really stark. We've got about 1 in 20 households that still have no home internet access, 10 million adults that still lack even the foundation level digital skills needed for everyday life. And certainly, as everyone in this virtual room will appreciate, the cost of living pressures are making affordability of connectivity and affordability of suitable devices even harder for a lot of families, a lot of individuals at this time. So that divide is stark. When we embarked on the research, at a glance, you'll see here a number of the different topics that were surfacing. And maybe a few things that we want to kind of draw attention to. One was there were a lot of commonalities actually coming out across the different businesses, across the different sectors, and that included shared concerns around the environment and around social inequalities and growing concerns around digital exclusion as well. The other thing that was really striking was that we were uncovering some significant barriers. And also for all of those barriers, we were hearing about business leaders and organizations that had found ways to overcome those barriers. And we were hearing a lot about real enablers through the interviews with business leaders. And I think where that has taken us is thinking, you know, now really feels like a great time to be having this conversation, doing this research. We think there are significant opportunities to transition to a circular electronics for social good model, something that's good for the planet and is also really good for people and tackling inequalities. So I'm going to hand over now to Gabby to take you through some of what we found at a deeper level in terms of the barriers and enablers.
Thank you, Emma. So yes, so we're gonna go a little bit deeper into what the actual findings were. So first, as you saw in the previous slides, there were 3 main barriers and 3 main enablers that helped us that we identified during this research. Definitely one of the things that we saw is that for the barriers around IT donation and disposal, such as logistics and data security, we found that when internal IT procurement and sustainability teams came together to make it work, it was very possible for organizations to make a smooth process. One other enabler that helped with data security as well, and one of the key takeaways I want to send today is that forming a strategic partnership with certified charities to dispose of IT equipment can definitely be done in the right way. And that a circularity for social good model offers definitely an additional approach for organizations. In regards to data security, as we can see here, some things that we definitely found is that this is definitely a concern that is still on the top of head of our leaders, especially because it has serious financial and reputation consequences. And even so, sometimes organizations went to the extent to destroying that physical asset to make sure to eliminate those risks. However, some of the things that we found is that by having a secure data wiping and clouding, this barrier can definitely be overcome. There are a number of programs that are certified by the government, UK government, where you can trusted wipe softwares and you can use them appropriately to make sure you mitigate this risk. Something really interesting that we found as well was that there's a new movement of transition to future technologies, such as data clouds, where all the information will be stored in the cloud, and therefore organizations are not going to have to be worried specifically on the actual hardware and state of data within hardware. So this is something that was also quite interesting. So I guess the final thought on this is, with the right knowledge and tools, we can definitely work towards a path to overcoming these data security concerns, and having the right partnership will definitely enable that. We go to the next one. This was a very interesting finding, which is all around the complexity on logistics and the end-to-end process. A lot of the interviews that we did, we found that there was a complex internal process, especially around where was an asset going, how was it going to go get picked up, and then how it was going to be sent for wiping and therefore ultimately sent for donation. Also, we had something around liability and risk, the concerns about how this asset was going to be used at the end of the life after an organization would donate it. One of the main enablers that we found here is that external partnership and that end-to-end process where we have certified organizations that can actually take the process away, do everything end-to-end from the pickup to the wiping to the actual donation. And so this is definitely one of the main enablers for this challenge. If we go to the next one. Very well. So this is around sort of lack of knowledge and awareness raising and internal collaboration. This was really interesting because in some of the interviews that we found, sometimes they were not there wasn't an understanding of how impactful donating a asset could be, and what was the potential benefit and impact that it had on sustainability and on the environment. Obviously, this could also be by not having the right knowledge about what the process is and the potential partnerships that you can develop. This could be a missed opportunity, not only to reduce environmental impact, but also to help the community where these organizations are based. One of the things that it was really interesting is in the organizations that were working really well, we definitely saw a collaboration, a very strong collaboration between IT, procurement, and ESG leaders and teams, because they were talking to each other in a way that the process became quite fluid. And it really worked when we had a champion within those teams. So someone who was driving and leading this from internal teams was definitely something that, if you think about creating your own process for donation, this is something that could potentially be implemented. There was another interesting finding, which was all around sort of the communication and awareness that you have with your own teams, within your own organization, sort of raising that awareness that a laptop that is being used by your employee is actually going to be reused and is going to impact someone's life. That was something that can definitely move that needle on people taking better care of their assets or IT or any sort of technology device, which again, we go back to, if they understand the impact that they're gonna have in the future, can definitely help increase the donation of these assets. And finally, in regards to sort of, yes, thank you, Emma, sort of the ESG reporting, right? This can definitely also have an impact on how those ESG reporting can be sort of written. In terms of, here we have sort of the electronics value chain, and we just want to explain a little bit of what could happen. So by the end of life of this IT asset, we have the extended life where you can refurbish and repair unwanted and unused devices, and then create a greater social impact by distributing to people in need. If you go to the next slide. So we created a process map about how the IT asset from the beginning to the end of disposal of e-waste. So we have the end of life of IT equipment. This is when we have all the teams sort of working together to start the donation process or the reuse of this IT. Then we get a partnership when you see the red color box, where that partnership or society, a civil society organization, can take care of the wiping, the testing, and therefore the proper disposal of this IT. Whenever it needs to be reused, then the device is refurbished, reused, and then finally it goes into the disposal of e-waste as well. Or if we have sort of an unused device, it will go directly to a recycling. So the main message here is, by having an understanding of the clear end-to-end process, we can sort of understand and see where we could further develop on when we're thinking about IT, circular electronics for social good model.
Brilliant. Thank you, Gabby. And so building out of that, we really felt that being able to map that process and some of those key stages along the process could be very helpful as part of our recommendations for businesses in different positions to be able to consider how they might want to respond, what they might want to take forward. And so towards the end of the report, we summarise what businesses might want to do, whether they're unable to donate due to high security data, whether they're at the start of a journey, or whether they're already on the journey and they're ready to move to the next level and maybe turn things that have been a one-off donation, perhaps during the pandemic, into something that's more of a business as usual partnership. And we also include recommendations for charities and civil society partners, and really critical here when we're thinking about the end-to-end process, that the end-to-end process ensures that good quality refurbished devices are getting into the hands of people who really need them, with enough life and enough support there to be able to help people to use those devices. And we wanted to put a challenge out too to members of the Circular Electronics Partnership and others who are circular economy experts to help work with us and think through more about some of these continuing challenges. We were hearing from diverse views around people thinking about the data security barriers, and it would be we feel it's really important to be able to have more of that convening, because there are a lot of different and important perspectives out there on that issue, but also importantly about how we can do more to thread environmental and social impact together in this way. And we do include recommendations too for government bodies and policymakers focused on the UK, because that was the scope of this research, was focused on the UK, but we do hope it'll be a springboard for other similar countries to be able to think of this as well. But perhaps most importantly, on this slide and through the report, we also include some of the voices of people who've received devices and some of the community organisations who've handed out devices through the National Device Bank, which is the initiative that Good Things Foundation is running and is scaling in the UK. And so just to use one of these quotes, just to really ground this in the reality of making a difference in the lives of digitally excluded people. So this was a community organisation that was saying, we support a brother and sister with learning disabilities, and they don't live in the same home. They both received a device, and the support they were getting from the support team is to talk to each other. I cannot relate just how important and how rich that must be for them to have that ability to connect. And that really is why this matters, better for the people, for reducing e-waste, and better also in terms of closing the digital divide.